Number 3, singing is about others. Paul says, quote, teaching and admonishing. Did you know our songs carry a message? What we sing about is teaching not only ourselves, but also those around us. Singing is for the hearers, the message contained in the words. For example, let's look at one that might be in our songbook here. My God and I, 4:17. It says, my God and I go in the fields together. We walk and talk as good friends shouldn't do. We clasp our hands. Our voices ring with laughter. You see, that song is expressing to those around us the kinship that we as Christians have with God, the closeness that we experience. The last little line in that song says, but God and I, even back up a little more. This earth will pass, and with it common trifles. But God and I will go unendingly. It reminds those around us of eternity and the Christian's expectation of eternity. You see, these songs, as the Hebrew writer in Hebrews chapter 10 and verse 24 reminds us of the need to meet together, is to stir up or provoke, depending on your translation. But the idea of stirring up each other to love and to good works. Singing is a great part of that. Stirring up. Consider Psalm 105 in the Old Testament. Now, what many people do not understand or don't know, even though we don't have written music for the book of Psalms, all of these Psalms are Hebrew poetry and at one time or another were put to music. One of the things about Hebrew poetry is it is not a rhyme as we know rhymes. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. It's not rhyming like that or tongue twisters, but the thought process. There's only one other language in the world that poetry can be translated into any other language and not lose the meaning. Hebrew and Japanese poetry are akin to one another in that it is a repetitious thought process. But in Psalm 105, I just want you to notice the entire psalm. We could look at this, but I want you to notice just the first few verses. Oh, give thanks to the Lord, call upon his name, make known his deeds among the people. Now, this song is singing to the unbeliever. This song is reminding us of the need to make known the greatness of God. Sing to him. Sing praises to him. Tell of all his wonderful works. Again, it's reminding us to not only sing to God, but it's reminding us to tell of God's greatness and wonderfulness to those around us. Glory in his name, in his holy name. Let the heart of those who seek the Lord rejoice. Seek the Lord and his strength. Seek his presence continually. See, these songs are teaching. They're carrying a message about the greatness of God, not only to the unbeliever, but also to the believer, reminding us of the greatness of our God. And the reason that we have assembled together is to worship God. Number 4, singing is warfare preparation. Now, I don't know, I think Dawn's been in the military. Did you ever have any songs you sang when you were in boot camp, Dawn? Everybody I've ever known who's been in military has come back with little ditties that they sang in boot camp. Singing is preparation. Some of them may not make any sense as far as that goes, but singing is warfare preparation. It is lifting up, and it is preparing our minds to fight Satan. It is mentally preparing us to face the challenges of the week ahead. Look at Ephesians chapter 5 for a moment. Let's go back here. Ephesians chapter 5 and see what Paul says here very quickly. Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 16. Paul says, making the best use of our time because the days are evil. He's reminding us evil is all around us. It is there. And because of that, in verse 19, he says, addressing one another in psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs, making melody in our heart to the Lord. And it reminds us of something, if you drop clear to the bottom of that paragraph in verse 21. Submitted to one another out of reverence for Christ. I never really thought about singing as submission, but it is. We are submitting to each other every time we sing. The music that is written is forcing us to follow a certain flow. We all sing the same tune. We all sing the same words. And while we're singing, we are submitting to each other. And we're also submitting to God, providing, of course, it's an acceptable worship song. It has been said that it is very hard, perhaps even impossible, to sin while making melody in our hearts to God. We sang this morning the song, Onward Christian Soldiers. Think about that song. What that song is doing is preparing us to move forward. It is motivating us to take our faith home with us. To those we love, to care about, it is motivating us to stand for truth. It is motivating us to be strong. Revelation 2 and verse 10, be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life. Songs like that are motivating us to be faithful to God to the very end. Number 5, when we sing, we are mentally building strength. I want you to think about that. Not just building up to fight a battle. I want to ask you this question. Why did Paul and Silas, when they were in prison in Acts chapter 6, why did they sing? Let's go back there. This is a rather lengthy reading, but I want us to see the benefits. They were in prison. This wasn't church. This wasn't worship. This was an exercise mentally for Paul and Silas when they were in trouble. I don't know about you, but there's a song I sing. I can't even remember the name off the top of my head. I don't sing it in church. I don't sing it any time. I do remember it. I don't say I don't sing it in church. I rarely sing it in church. I don't know that I've ever led it in worship service. But there is a song that I occasionally sing. And if you hear me singing that outside of church, it's because there's something weighing very heavily on my mind. And I do sing that song when things are not going well, because it is mental exercise. Acts chapter 6. Begin with me, if you will, in verse 25. I'm sorry, this may not be the correct passage. Oh dear, I've got the wrong passage written down. It's Acts chapter 5, not Acts chapter 6. Acts chapter 5, and in verse I'm sorry, I have the wrong passage. I will see if I can very quickly find the right one. I'm sure that it was my hand-scribbled notes. that Kate could not read when she was transferring things to PowerPoint for me. Is Acts chapter 16. And in verse 25.